What's going on, guys? Episode 31. We are here today with Derek, aka Squanch, from the Discord for Nifty Gateway. I found him chatting about how NFTs were going to blow up once you started getting YouTubers into the space. And so you could tell that he was an expert in that kind of field. So I reached out. He had mentioned that he did work in it. And so I had him on the podcast. He is the co founder of LFI Talent Agency, which manages and kind of helps to directionalize different YouTubers in terms of, profitability and marketing and stuff to that extent. So we go in, we talk about NFTs, we talk about how digital artists can better manage their brand, what's going to make an NFT artist successful. Top Shot, which neither of us are big basketball fans, so that was kind of hilarious, but rising tide raises all boats, right? So great talk with him. Honestly, like blew me out of the water in terms of just his knowledge base and really just general functionality of thinking through different issues where I was like, oh man, thank God I had this guy on. So please take a listen. Enjoy. Let me know what you guys think. As always, questions down in the comments. Appreciate it. Thank you for the time. This was really, really an awesome one. I had a high bar and he blew it out of the water. So please enjoy. Thank you. Peace. So I guess we'll kind of just do you want to introduce yourself and really like talk to what got you into NFTs and like what you do in terms of like a background?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Derek, or also known as Squanch on Nifty Gateway or NBA Top Shots, uh, which is a pretty fun, unique username, which
Mm,
is kind of cool. Um, I got into NFTs originally because I saw Beeple that going to be doing a drop on Nifty Gateway. But I originally saw NFTs in its infancy with like CryptoKitties. The
mm,
company Dapper Labs that created CryptoKitties is actually part of the same town that I live in Vancouver. So Vancouver seems to be like a bit of a hubspot for NFTs. Actually, there's a lot of artists and different people in the community that are all part of Vancouver, which is really cool to see it in your hometown, like a Canadian town, which is really interesting to see. But I never got into the CryptoKitty side or any of the NFTs up until I think November is when I first bought my first piece on Nom Nom, I
mm,
think it's called.
mm,
And that was my first dabble into it. But I was really getting into Nifty Gateway because I saw that Beeple had a drop coming up.
mm,
And I've known Beeple for years. I originally found his work through YouTube through actually Monster Cat,
mm,
which they've actually done a couple. They've done a release of their own with the constellations and another artist that did all of the VR virtual reality artwork. And I saw that Beeple was going to be doing a release, and I've been a fan of his since like I think it was 2013 is when I first saw one of his major VJ loops
mm,
on a Monster Cat release. It was like a 45-minute VJ loop, and it blew my mind. It was like super psychedelic and really cool visuals. And I remember watching it in actually, I was showing my friend when we took a trip to Amsterdam and Paris. And
mm,
I was like, we got to watch this after a fun trip in Amsterdam.
mm,
And it just like, it was really interesting to me to see now a digital artist that I've watched for many years come and be able to like sell their artwork, which was a really cool and interesting new concept to me because I over the last like 2 years I just started collecting like real physical artwork that
mm,
had a lot of psychedelic background. You can actually see one of the pieces back there.
mm,
It's kind of like a play on Adam and Eve with the snake, the tree.
mm,
And that's really how I first jumped into the NFT space was
mm,
just being a huge fan of Beeple and then wanting one of those pieces of work.
mm,
I bought the bull run and then I went to go buy the ether and my credit card was like, nope, you don't have enough on
mm,
your spending limit because I really don't like having a lot of like debt at all.
mm,
And so I don't really have a huge credit card in or anything. And I just bought this like charity sweater for like $200, and that prevented me from getting into the ether because I had just bought that and I had hit my limit.
mm,
But that's how I got into NFTs. But I've been a like creator and working in a creative space for basically my whole life.
mm,
After high school, I went to film school, and then I worked in the film industry for several years. I started off as a production assistant, then worked my way up into the camera department.
Mm.
And then I realized I don't want to work 15 hours in the rain every day because
Mm.
we're filming in Vancouver and it's constantly raining. But luckily, during that time, I was already so ingrained as a fan of YouTube and the consumption of online content and the idea that just anyone in their like apartment, house, parents' basement
Mm.
could make content that could be viewed by anyone with the ability of taking that and leapfrogging into like the film industry.
Mm.
So when I started making YouTube videos, I didn't expect to go full time and
Mm.
for it to be my full time job. I was working 15 hours a day, Monday to Friday in the film industry, and then spending a few hours on the weekends making videos on YouTube.
Mm.
And at one point, the entire film industry shut down because of a writer's strike.
Mm.
Everyone lost their jobs. You don't know when it's going to come back again. So I started taking YouTube more seriously, and I was like, well, I've got this, so I might as well give it my all. And
Mm.
then I started making more and more YouTube videos, and I gained enough popularity on YouTube way back in the day. This is like 2009 is like
Mm.
when I first really started taking it more seriously, and it was enough to like really kind of keep me afloat and like be like a decent stable income.
Mm.
But eventually yeah, I got kind of tired of making the content myself
Mm.
because to be honest, I didn't actually like being on camera.
Mm.
When I first got into it, I didn't want to be on camera at all. But when the early stages of YouTube, there weren't such things as like videographers and
Mm.
editors for YouTubers or managers and agents. It was just so new and fresh at the time that
Mm.
you really had to put yourself out there. So I went through it and I grew a decent following, but it really wasn't for me to be so camera facing all the time.
Mm.
So I eventually started working at a YouTube MCN, where I helped other YouTube channels and creators and the company grow their YouTube channels. So I became an expert in YouTube growth and marketing, how to utilize the algorithm to grow a channel, best practices for thumbnails and search engine optimization and content strategies. And
Mm.
that's really where my career has then kind of transported to LFI Talent Agency.
Mm.
Because at the time, a lot of creators were getting screwed over by a lot of different companies. And I really hated that,
Mm.
including the company that I was working for previously. So, as a former creator, seeing a bunch of creators get screwed over and taken advantage of, I really didn't like that. So, I wanted to help carve something new in the YouTube industry. And that's why we launched LFI, because we wanted to offer something for the creators where they saw value and we were helping them grow their business and not just taking a percentage of their revenue and doing nothing.
Mm.
So that's why we got into it. And we've been able to kind of scale up to like a 13-person team now,
Mm.
which is really exciting to see. COVID actually kind of helped accelerate the growth, which
Mm.
was at first I thought going to like crush us. So I'm like, who's gonna market stuff when there's a pandemic and no one's buying stuff? But
Mm.
everything turned to e-commerce, which
Yeah.
actually helped kind of YouTube creators promote more products
Mm.
as less money was being spent on print and advertising in traditional ways.
Yeah. Can you? So I want to actually call out. You weren't like no name. You had like 115,000 followers, and that was like as of 7 years ago. So I would just assume YouTube's continue to grow. So like I would assume you'd probably be somewhere in the millions had you continued. I completely understand not wanting to be camera facing if that's just not what you want to do. But yeah, you definitely. I think you underplayed the success from that standpoint because 115,000 is definitely nothing to put your nose up at, right? And then I did have a question. What's an MCN? Is that a media content network or that's just my guess?
Yeah, so I'll try and answer it quick, but it's a long question.
Mm.
So in the early days of YouTube, you weren't able to monetize video game content because at the time, copyright laws really weren't unsure how to kind of incorporate video game content.
Mm.
Should it be similar to movies or should it be different? So at the time, YouTube just wouldn't allow you to monetize gaming videos unless you were partnered with Machinima.
Mm.
Machinima was a company that had already obtained licenses from video games to monetize the company to monetize those games. So if you were an early video game content creator like I was,
mm.
you had to partner with Machinima if you wanted to make money on YouTube.
Mm.
And in the early stages, they famously had the worst contracts of all time.
Mm.
It was a 60-40 contract
Wow.
where they took 40% of the revenue, and the contract length was in perpetuity, forever.
Yeah.
So as like young kids like getting into it, you were just signing it because you just wanted to be able to make money and revenue off
Mm.
of YouTube. It was like, this is fantastic. Everyone was so willing to sign it and give away that type of income because that was the only way to generate that type of revenue.
Mm.
And in the early stages of YouTube, YouTube really heavily relied on these companies to partner YouTube channels and to take over the process of paying those creators the ad revenue,
Mm.
dealing with any issues that they have, because YouTube in its early days was already bleeding so much money on just the data costs, and they really only became profitable in the last couple of years.
Mm.
So they really leaned on these MCNs to kind of take on this huge workload to grow the foundation of YouTube. But what happened was a lot of those companies just started taking advantage of YouTubers,
Mm.
signing every channel, and then taking 40, 30, 20,
Mm.
10, 5%, whatever it was of their ad revenue, providing basic services,
Yeah.
but not like one-on-one real kind of growth strategies, because some of these companies were partnering over 100,000 creators
Mm.
and they had maybe 400 employees. So it's like it's literally impossible to actually generate value to that amount of creators
Mm.
at that scale. So that's kind of where the MCN model was a few years ago,
Mm.
but it's become quite a bit different now, just as creators are becoming more knowledgeable about the space and seeing the pitfalls of all the other creators that have gone through all of the bad stuff from the early days, I'd say.
Yeah, that sounds almost like the music industry, like everybody who's a part of like streaming services or just, oh yeah, like Sony, they're going to sign whatever. I mean, off the top of my head, Mac Miller comes to mind. They sign Mac Miller, and that way, that gets him into like the mainstream, but, they take him for like an arm and a leg, and, they take all the merch sales. Like it's the model of
Yeah.
basically monopolization, right? Like you can't be a player in the game of, large scale concerts or, widespread distribution unless you partner with them, but they also ream you in terms of like what your actual profits would be versus trying to do it yourself. So it's definitely like a similar thing, I would say, right?
Yeah, I think very, very similar. Like
Mm.
a lot of these companies took a large percentage of their revenue, and
Mm.
some of these creators started making a lot of money, and they were trying to get out of contracts and agreements, and it's like, nope, you're stuck with us for X amount of years.
Mm.
And that's why if you go on like YouTube and search like MCN review, you're
Mm.
just gonna see thousands of videos from YouTube creators complaining about the MCN
Mm.
taking their money and not really providing the services that they were looking for.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I think it's something that you see, not to really like go into the weeds with this, but it's something that you see with the legacy institutions, and like, not that YouTube is one, but it's kind of generating like a similar issue where the legacy institutions just kind of like have, I don't want it to be like too much of like a boomer versus millennial thing, but like really just like ripped off like the millennial like ability to be profitable, or really make the same kind of money that the boomers were able to make in that same time frame. Which, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to kind of pivot, right? Like you were mentioning like a lot of the people pieces. I checked out your profile. Do you want to talk like a little bit in terms of your collection and like what makes a piece something that you have to have, or like what kind of catches your eye and stuff to that extent?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it comes down to like a few different things. The Beeple one for me was just because I was such a big fan of Beeple and the work that he's done over the years with his everyday project, that it was like a no-brainer to me that this was going to be such a pivotal like NFT in the space for the future, and
Mm.
especially with the physical tie-in, which I got my shipping notification. I'm just waiting for it to come in the mail. It's been
Nice.
sitting in Miami for like a week. I'm like,
Mm.
come on, go through customs. But for other artists, a lot of it gravitates to the type of art that I've been collecting already, like in my house, which is
Mm.
some psychedelic art, which is, I think, really interesting and cool to look at. But
Mm.
then I'm also looking for like applicational uses, because one of the other major reasons why I kind of correlated NFTs and their potential growth was actually looking at the video game market
Mhm.
and seeing the applications of digital sales in
Mhm.
that market turning into NFTs in the future. And video games actually were the reason why I started looking at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as an investment years ago as well.
Mhm.
When in 2013, when I saw Counter Strike players spending
Yeah.
$1,500 on a CS:GO knife, I was like, wait, one Bitcoin is like less than that.
Yeah.
why why wouldn't I invest in Bitcoin
Mhm.
instead of CS:GO knives?
Mhm.
CS:GO is a dominant game, but I don't really see the value of these knives going into the trillions of dollars. But
Mhm.
I can see the use case of Bitcoin
Mhm.
eventually hitting $1 trillion, and it just recently passed that, which is really exciting to see.
Mhm.
So the video game market and the NFT side is where I really see a lot of application in the future. And
Mhm.
that was one of the major reasons why I picked up some of the darts from a lot of money and rare boards,
Mhm.
was because it was tied to like a custom created dartboard that you could actually play on,
Mhm.
which was really fun. I got to participate in the inaugural NFT dartboard tournament. Didn't get first place.
Mhm.
I believe who was it that won first place? I forget their name off the top of my head, but I know Tommy. He ended up actually getting first place like the day after,
Nice.
and that was a lot of fun. And it was like really the combining the video game space, which is a huge thing that I love and I've
Mhm.
been a part of for like my whole life, and the artwork,
Mhm.
and combining the two is where I see the application for the future in a big way.
Yeah.
But on the art side, there's a few things that I'm really going to be taking a look at. What is their social media presence, and
Mhm.
how do they utilize their social media
Mhm.
to promote their own work? Because at the end of the day, the artist is going to be having to do their own promotion to promote their work. It's vastly different than I think the traditional art market, where a lot of the artists were reliant more on galleries and
Mhm.
the collectors to really kind of uh, uh, promote their artwork and tell everyone about it. But with the rise of social media and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, really the artists have the power in their own hands. And because I'm so tied to social media through my job, I
Mhm.
can really get a better understanding of like, oh wow, this person's Instagram is doing really well. I can see that their follower count is kind of matching the likes and engagement. They've got a really active fan base around this, and people
Mhm.
are really gravitating towards their artwork. And then especially if I see that a bunch of other artists or musicians that I follow are also following that artist, that leads me to believe that, oh, potentially there could be like a future collaboration down the road where
Mhm.
the two of these people already are following their own work and they like each other. So there's opportunities there.
Mhm.
And then I look for, I guess, the diamonds in the rough, things that people aren't buying into and
Mhm.
I see that are really undervalued. And the first one that comes to mind was Uniswap. Um, it was only, I think, last week, and I've been spending hours just going through the entire marketplace of Nifty Gateway. I
Mhm.
started looking just at each individual artist and seeing what their pieces were sold for on the current market, and then really seeing where the market is right now, and if those have really appreciated in value, or if people just haven't been able to find it.
Mhm.
And Uniswap was one for me where I was like, this at the time there was one selling for $667,
Mhm.
and it was less than just like the actual cost when it first came out. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is tied to a physical book that's going to cost like a good amount of money to create and to
Mhm.
ship to everyone, and it's got the same serial count as the bull run from Beeple,
Mhm.
and it's also tied to a cryptocurrency coin. So if Beeple created the de facto Bitcoin and Ethereum physical and digital NFT
Mhm.
that's tied to those coins that people are gravitating towards as like, oh, if you like Bitcoin, you'll want the Bitcoin Bull from Beeple.
Yeah.
But if you like Uniswap, you might want to grab the Uniswap from Slime Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was like, why aren't people picking this up? It's grossly undervalued, especially considering that the last stand of the nation state has a higher serial count
Mhm.
and no physical tie-in by the same artist. And
Mhm.
it doesn't look like Slime Sunday is uh, getting any less popular in the future. Like their artwork is amazing, and their Instagram is growing immensely, and
Mm.
everyone's loving the artwork that they're putting on Nifty Gateway. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, I really should buy a few of these.
Yeah.
Then I didn't. And then I went onto the Discord and I was like, and someone's like, why is this so undervalued?
Oh
And then I
man.
posted in the Discord that this piece is the most undervalued piece on the
Mm.
entirety of Nifty Gateway. And I
Mm.
listed some of the reasons that I just said. And within a couple hours, it blew up to like $3,000, $4,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I buy
Buy
one or
first.
two of them? Yeah. I got priced out because of my own comments.
Yeah.
And then, so I learned my lesson from that. And the
Yeah.
next time I found something that I thought was a huge diamond in the rough,
Mm.
I bought two of them
Mm.
because it was BD White was another one
Mm.
that I thought was grossly undervalued because they were one of the very first street artists to have their artwork on Nifty Gateway,
Mm.
and they've got a great Instagram. They've got great artwork. It's tied with a space theme, which I also really love. I
Yeah.
love anything to do with space, um, and I see a lot of correlation with the street artist community and the NFT crypto community. It's very like anti-establishment, kind
Mm.
of like individualism. So I see a lot of ties with street art and the NFT space, especially because how were a lot of these like graffiti artists and street artists supposed to make money
Yeah.
previous to Banksy kind of blowing up and like taking that over by I don't even know how he did it, but uh,
Nuclear.
he basically infiltrated like the fine art community
Yeah.
where no other street artist had been able to do that really
Mm.
as not nearly as to the level as Banksy, of course, but so I saw it as like this is the first street artist on Nifty Gateway.
Mm.
They had a couple pieces for like $500 and $700, and it was
Mm.
a serial of 15. I was like,
Wow.
this
Scoop.
this doesn't this doesn't make sense. So I bought two of them, and then I told everyone, hey, this is going to be worth a lot more in the future.
Mm.
And the other major part was on their Instagram, which for anyone watching that is looking for how to find those like diamonds in the rough that's going to do well, they had already posted on their Instagram that they're working on an animation tied to the same kind of astronaut artwork. And
Mm.
it's their first time dabbling in animation. And they announced that it would be available on Nifty Gateway in the future. And
Mm.
Nifty Gateway's Instagram even like commented with like a check mark sign or something. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, so they're gonna get another drop. And when that happens, it's gonna really
Wow.
highlight their previous drop, and everyone's gonna want to buy their first drop, similar to Beeple's first drops really growing in popularity
Mm.
after the big drop kind of happened and grew in popularity.
Yeah. So that's a great breakdown, honestly. I think that you and maybe cut me like 1 or 5 or 10%, but I think that you have a great niche and ability for yourself to. You're not just managing YouTube accounts, but I think that you should probably at least try to talk to some of these artists. Like coming from your background where you are trying not to trying not to like fuck people over, right? Like you just want, mutually
Yeah.
beneficial relationship. And, being that you went through it, I mean, I don't know what the whatever. I'm not telling anybody to do it. Hopefully you do it like, correctly, whatever. But like that's something that I mean, what's the difference between, the stats or attributions that help a YouTube page and not an artist? Like it's probably very, it's probably a pretty good match made in heaven for you.
Yeah, and trust me, that's something I've already been looking into.
Mm.
Every time that our company has like a weekly call, I'm the crazy one talking about
Mm.
NFTs, and I'm like, we need to really take a look
Yeah.
at this because I think it's going to be one of the next big things in the
Mm.
creator space. And whether we work with like creators that we're already working with to create NFTs in the future that are related to kind of their content, or doing a collaboration with like a native digital artist.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there for like a digital artist to work with like a YouTuber,
Mm.
or for like a YouTuber that, depending on their type of content, it could make sense to also dive in as an NFT artist itself.
Mm.
Like I represent a creator called
Mm.
And Hexion creates one of a kind customized dolls.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, this could work. They're creating like super highly customized dolls,
Mm.
and they've never actually sold the dolls in person.
Mm.
And I get constantly flooded in the inbox from fans trying to buy their dolls.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, unfortunately, Hexion's not selling these dolls. He's just never sold one of them because he
Huh.
wants it to go to like a collector that's gonna really treat it with like the respect that he put like a ton of time into creating. So
Mm.
I feel like for certain creators that are like have an artistic element, there's
Mm.
a potential for them to get into the NFT scene
Yeah.
and gain an additional source of revenue that they have more ownership on.
Mm.
Because that's one of the other issues that we try and make sure that the creators that we work with know is that you always have to have additional streams of revenue, and you
Mm.
shouldn't just be reliant on one, because we've seen time and time again, if you're a creator on YouTube, you're beholden to the platform. If
Yeah.
YouTube bans your account and you don't have another secondary source of revenue, whether that's Twitch, and deals,
Mm.
or merchandise, or an email newsletter, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you don't want to be put in a place where your revenue is shut out completely because of a platform decision.
Mm.
And I've gone through that with several creators where I was actually working with like a kids channel that was
Mm.
using doll content.
Uh-huh.
And because of a thing called Elsa Gate a few years ago, um, YouTube started banning all of these channels that
Huh.
were doing Elsa content
Well,
from Frozen.
I don't know Elsa Gate. Could you elaborate, or is it
Yeah, so
terrible?
yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Oh,
So
okay.
a few years ago, during the major hype of Frozen,
Yeah.
it became really, really popular for kids channels to create content utilizing Elsa and her sister
Mm.
as characters and to tell stories.
Mm.
But eventually what happened was you've got your channels that are looking to make great content for kids with like a learning lesson,
Mm.
and it's like it's any show that you could watch on like Nickelodeon or
Mm.
anything that's like a parent would approve of. Then you also have other people that really don't care, and they just want to make as much money as possible. They don't care about kids at all.
Mm.
And what they ended up doing was making a lot of content that was really not safe for kids, where like Elsa and Spider-Man are hooking up
Oh.
and having sex, or Elsa's there was a lot of poop videos.
Mm.
Apparently kids love poop, and there became like a whole
Huh.
trend of like pooping videos.
Mm.
Yeah, don't ask me. It's just like a kid thing, I guess. But
Yeah.
what happened was a lot of these channels started really blowing up,
Mm.
and then their parents were like, why is YouTube recommending these videos to my children? And
Mm.
then those parents get angry, they cause an uproar, and then you've got journalists looking to attack digitally native creators
Mm.
that are on YouTube because they feel threatened because of their jobs are being undermined by YouTubers. So they write all these nasty articles that every kids creator on YouTube is trying to make your kids watch really inappropriate content.
Mm.
And instead of YouTube taking the time to really find the bad actors and do the appropriate actions against those channels, it was an algorithm where it's like, oh, you made Elsa content, like a bunch of it.
Yeah.
The algorithm picked up on it, and your channel was banned entirely.
Wow.
And this channel was just blowing up.
Mm.
So they started making some really serious revenue.
Mm.
And in November and December is when creators make the most amount of money because advertisers pay more money for
Yeah.
the Christmas rush. So what happened was YouTube banned their entire YouTube channel. They couldn't upload new content. And all the money that they made in November, they held it. And they said, we're not paying you this money unless you do this, 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 and this.
Mm.
We had to go through every single video on the channel. And if there was anything inappropriate and it was very subjective, we
Mm.
had to delete the video. Out of 1,000 videos, we played it safe and deleted like 500 videos.
Wow.
And even then, we got one chance of approval. We
Mm.
would send a channel to YouTube, they would take a look at it, and if they deemed it appropriate, you would get your money back and
Mm.
your channel back. If not, bye. We're keeping your money, all the money that you made,
Of course.
and you're banned. Like, you can't upload content to the channel.
Mm,
It's demonetized, so you can't make future revenue. So what ended up happening is they couldn't upload any content in December, and
mm,
they weren't able to make any money in December, which is like the highest paying month out of the year. So
mm,
it was a huge blow to them, especially as their channel had just kind of really taken off. So
mm.
it was really heartbreaking and really tough to kind of see someone's like years of work just be stripped away
Yeah.
because a few channels on YouTube decided to take advantage of the algorithm and make inappropriate content for kids.
Yeah, that's dude, that's wild. That's is there other platforms that like people are utilizing? Like I know that there's been some big names who have left YouTube just because of like the strikes policy and just other stuff as far as that goes. But like are people monetizing on other sites in the video content like just sphere?
It's really tough. YouTube is the king.
Yeah.
Like no one can compete with YouTube at this stage.
Mm,
Facebook is growing really rapidly in the video space as
mm,
well. But with Facebook, you need money and you have to spend money to be able to earn money because
huh,
it's a much different algorithm and platform than YouTube. YouTube system is you gain subscribers, you put out your content, and those subscribers watch the content, and then it gets shared through the algorithm.
mm,
Facebook is a lot different. It's more set up for advertisers looking to specifically advertise on types of pages
mm,
and audience demographics. But with Facebook, even if you gain 1 million followers on your Facebook page
mm.
and you post a video, Facebook's not going to show it to all 1 million people. You have to pay to actually have your content viewed by all of those people. So unless you've got some startup capital to work with, it's a lot more difficult to really make it on Facebook.
Mm,
But for the channels that do make it on Facebook, I'm seeing crazy revenue for some creators that we work with
mm.
that are importing their content to Facebook. And
Yeah.
it's a much different audience as well. It's a much older audience on
Mm,
Facebook, whereas YouTube's a much younger demographic. I
mm,
feel like YouTube is where the cultural shift happens for video content in a lot of ways.
mm.
And then it kind of gets moved to like other platforms elsewhere.
Yeah.
There's also Twitch, but that's live streaming, and
Yeah.
it's a whole different beast than video content.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, I don't know. Twitch for me has been cool. Like I'm not monetizing whatsoever, and I'm just kind of having a blast. So it just whatever. But for me, like Facebook, the recommended videos that I get on Facebook are just all streamers, and like I know that most of the algorithms right are like based on your habits and stuff like that. I've never clicked on any of the streams. I don't even pause. I just see them right. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just whatever generic male, whatever. I'm 29, like generic male 29. Like every person that I get is Call of Duty female, and like I'm just like, what, like can I get something like a little more interesting? Like I'm worth more than that as an ad. Like I promise. It's
Yeah.
I used to work in digital advertising, so it's when people were like, "Oh, wow, I can't believe they're tracking you." I'm like, "You checked, like you chose to give them all of that information." Like it was like baffling to me. I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of creepy," like I was
Yeah.
getting like Norwegian does this ad where I went on a cruise, I don't know, 2015. The entire winter after that cruise, every time I came out of the train station in Manhattan, they had the electronic billboard. Every time I came out, whatever billboard, whatever ad was playing, switched and it went to a Norwegian ad. And like the first couple times, you're like, coincidence. After like 5 weeks, I'm like, get the fuck out of my face. Like this is annoying. Like I know you're tracking me. Like I do the same shit. Like I know you're
Yeah.
geotagging me and whatever. But yeah, it's always interesting to see people like not actually like understand like what they're signing to. And like sometimes in the case of, early
Totally.
YouTubers, they really get screwed. In the case of us, I think that we probably should own more of our data, but that's a whole nother topic. It's yeah. I
Yeah,
will
that would be a topic that gets discussed quite a bit over the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I think Canada will probably do the better thing earlier than America, just due to whatever the normal kind of things, right? It's too much pay to play in politics and whatever. But so for you, like, what's your favorite niches? So like basically, your company is taking to market or helping in market different YouTube accounts, right? do you have like a certain, and feel free to, be as vague as possible if you need to be, but like, how do you decide that, a content provider is somebody that you want to partner with, that you see like long form? Is there any kind of like favorite niches that you really love right now for yourself?
Yeah, great question. So originally, when we first launched the company, we really started off in the gaming space,
Mm,
predominantly because I was predominantly a video game creator myself. I dabbled in like skits and talking to the camera videos as
mm,
well, but I really grow the majority of my audience through Call of Duty and Minecraft. And then when I was working at that company, I was managing and creating the programming strategy for their video game channels predominantly.
mm,
So when we first launched, it was mostly gaming, but gaming was already uh, so developed because it was one of the really big content categories that
mm,
grew really popular on YouTube really quickly. So we decided to expand into all different types of topics. But what we've really kind of honed down on in the last like couple years is just an older audience, and
mm,
predominantly an older male audience has kind of been the majority of the content creators we work with. So we really look for creators that have a bit of an older audience with some spending money,
mm,
because a lot of the deals that we do are for like products and services where they want to promote to like a 20-plus-year-old demographic who has the money and ability to buy something like Raycon wireless earbuds,
mm,
something like that.
mm,
So when we're looking for channels, predominantly we're looking for creators that average about 100,000 views per video or more,
mm,
just so that we can ensure that we can provide the same level of work to those creators that are 100,000 to a million views,
mm,
because the deal sizes become less frequent when you hit the really high view counts,
mm,
but they become more frequent on the lower deal sizes. But for channels that are like much smaller, it's really tough for us to be able to provide good enough value based on the revenue that we're going to be able to generate through either ad revenue or through brand deals and sponsorships.
mm,
The majority of the revenue does come through brand deals and sponsorships. So we really need to work with creators that are getting a high amount of views per video.
mm,
And then on the non-viewership side, I've really taken the approach to really push the talent managers that we work with to go after content that they enjoy and
mm,
that they love. And that's really helped us because a lot of the talent managers were just fans of this content
mm,
and some of these channels. And because they're fans and they love their content, that content creator knows that this person is in their corner and is
mm,
going to fight for them and is looking out for the best in their interests, and they know the content category really well. Like one of the newer people that we brought on like over a year ago was really into basketball and hip hop.
mm,
And then so he started signing all of these hip hop and basketball channels
mm,
because that was the culture that he was already ingrained in. He knew what they were talking about when
mm,
they would talk about things that were related to their channel, so they could spitball ideas and they already knew what was happening. But then they would also have the business side to help them kind of further their career to kind of really push it.
mm,
So we really like to have the talent managers that we're working with work with creators that they love.
mm,
Like my girlfriend, for example, she loves watching trash reality shows.
mm,
So then she, so then she started working with like content creators that were doing commentary videos on like trashy reality shows,
mm,
and that's worked really well
mm.
because when you're a fan of something, you dive in and
Yeah.
and you're so much more excited to work in it and to enjoy it. I've always had the philosophy that everyone says, if you love what you're doing, you never work. And trust me, I thought that was 100% true. Then I worked in the film industry, and I
Mm,
was like, oh no, no.
mm,
As cool as it is to work with Tom Cruise on Mission Impossible, it's a hell of an industry to really work day in and day out, and
mm.
it kills you,
Yeah.
especially if you're working in the rain and freezing cold every day.
Yeah.
But I've always loved YouTube content, and I always knew it was the future of like video.
Mm,
And it's exciting to see how far it's come in the last 10 years, and even more excited to have kind of like continued my business in it, because I see a lot of content creators where it doesn't work out for them after several years.
Mm.
Being a content creator is honestly one of the toughest like jobs you can have, and a lot of people look at it as, oh, that's super easy, you make a YouTube video and you post it online.
Mm.
What they don't see is all of the other aspects that come to be a content creator. You got to be a writer, a video editor, a photoshopper to make thumbnails. You got to be you have to be a digital marketer to understand like search engine optimization and
Mm.
marketing. And you also need to be like an accountant. You need to figure out how to deal with taxes in a different
Mm.
way that aren't like normalized if you're just working at a regular job where they
Mm.
just you do your turbo tax or whatever and you're done with it. But as
Mm.
like a YouTuber, you're self-employed, and that comes with so many more other variables. You're not going to get employee benefits, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of things that especially like the ups and downs. You have to deal with budgeting. Oh, I
Mm.
don't know how much money I'm going to make next month because I
Right.
don't know how many views I'm going to get next month.
Mm.
I remember trying to get a mortgage years ago, and I this was when I was working at the company as well. So I had like a decent salary, but it wasn't a lot. The
Mm.
Vancouver freaking housing market is ridiculous. Like
Mm.
we're talking like $500,000 for a 400 square foot studio.
Mm.
Um, and
I'm
I
in a
was
similar
trying to
boat.
utilize, yeah, New York. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, and then I was using my salary plus my YouTube revenue, and the
Mm.
bank is like, "Oh no, your YouTube revenue is useless. We can't look at that because it's not the same amount of money every single month. It has to be the same amount
Mm.
every month so that we have a more predictive model to understand if you can afford this mortgage."
Mm.
So a lot of YouTubers, even if they are making a good amount of money, can't even get a mortgage
It's
because the
crazy.
revenue isn't consistent. So
Mm.
they end up just having to save and save and save and save, and hopefully they're investing and investing and investing. That way they
Mm.
can grow it and not have their money inflated away with all the money printing in the last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really tough. And then you also have to deal with negative comments and the high schoolness of the industry as well. Like
Mm.
people talking behind your back and the drama and all
Mm.
that. That's it's a whole other ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I definitely identify with the learning to edit, and then whatever. Right now, for some reason, my video is not super crisp, so I'm gonna have to look at that after this. And just like all these different things where I'm just like, I just wanted to interview people and like have cool conversations. Like that's it. Like that's why I'm here. I saw you talking in general chat, and that's how I got here. So a lot of people, that's how you got here. You were just talking in gen chat, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna DM him. He seems to know what he's talking about. You were talking about YouTubers bringing their stuff to market, and that's really gonna blow up. And I wanted to call out one of them just because you guys have a great channel. I believe it's called Tesla Space, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not like a huge Tesla fanboy, but I put a whatever I said down payment and I put it on Twitter and it's $100. I put $100 down for the Cybertruck, and so I'm excited. Whatever, well it's 2 years out, and so a whole lot of shit can happen, and maybe it doesn't happen, but I am trying for it, right? But that channel is I gave it because you sent me I don't know 20 different channels, and so I opened them all up, right? And that's how I knew about like the doll artist and a whole bunch of other ones. But so I went through it, and their content is incredible. So kudos to you in that regard. And then using your expertise, I just wanted to call it out while we were on the topic of the YouTube channels. But from your expertise, like what issues do you think that a lot of artists are not, or what do you think artists are not capitalizing on in terms of like really just taking their content into more people's hands, or just getting a lot more likes and followers? Because at the end of the day, like you're 100% correct, they are their own marketers and distributors, and for you wanting to pick them up, they have to do well with that. And so yeah, what do you think is like the number one thing they're not doing well right now?
I think for me, it's not utilizing on their on camera personality as much if they're willing to be an on camera personality.
Mm-hmm.
Fuocious does this very well. And I think it's because he's so young and he probably grew up with YouTube and
Yeah.
TikTok and social media that on camera personality comes natural to him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he goes on like Twitter video, getting all excited
Yeah.
about like a drop coming up, and then after the drop, the excitement of what happened.
Mm,
And people gravitate that because they can see the emotion and the personality and the artist's like actual personality really shine, right? Like
mm,
obviously it's coming through the artwork as well, but
mm.
when you see him getting so excited
Yeah.
like before the drop and it just and is like smile and everything, it's infectious,
Yeah.
and that makes you gravitate towards the artist. So I think in the future, I think we'll see more artists that are predominantly on just Instagram and Twitter
Mm,
eventually move to something like YouTube and TikTok or Twitch.
mm,
Like for Twitch, they could be creating some custom, like doing streams of creating like a custom art piece live for everyone to watch and
mm.
follow along, answering questions and whatnot. Or if it's on Twitter, or sorry, not Twitter, on TikTok or YouTube, they could be doing other things that are just like outside of the artist world, but
Mm,
just sharing more of their personality and who they are, and some of the reasons why some of this artwork is special to them.
mm,
Because I look at like Justin Mahler's recent work,
mm,
which was really good and really heartbreaking at the same time. And
mm.
he had put out the entire, like it was like a written kind of like detailed response about what this meant to him and the reasoning behind it. And I think that's is great, like being able to read that,
Mm.
but also being able to see someone kind of speak about it and seeing their like emotion on their face really brings it, I think, to that next level.
Mm.
And I see it as even like if you're like a traditional artist with your own art gallery and you're at the gallery and you're speaking with like the people that are there to view the artwork and
Mm.
potential collectors, you're answering their questions and talking about the artwork and just having like just general dialogue and connecting with people on a
Yeah.
human level, right? And I think that's really where some of these next generation of artists are really going to shine,
Mm.
with that connectivity with the community as a whole. Jumping over to the Discord thing, it actually that is the Discord is probably one of the major reasons why I've been so hyped on the NFT space,
Mm.
is because it's another community that people can fall in love with. Whether you fall in love with a particular art piece, I've really fell in love with the NFT community as a whole.
Mm.
It's so loving, passionate, and accepting and positive,
Mm.
and it reminds me of when I was in elementary school. I was collecting Star Wars CCG cards
Mm.
based on the original trilogy of Star Wars,
Mm.
and they were created by Decipher. And Decipher had a message board where you could talk with the other people that were collecting and playing the Star Wars CCG game
Mm.
on a message board. And I may have been like 10 years old
Mm.
on these message boards, communicating with probably a bunch of like teenagers, 20-year-olds,
Mm.
30-year-olds, 40-year-olds. Like the sky was the limit. But as like no one knows that as like this 10-year-old kid, I was communicating with them,
Mm.
talking about different collecting strategies and different strategies in the actual game itself. Then they had a trading community on the message board as well.
Mm.
And this was like in the early days of the internet. This is this is 20 years ago. So
Mm.
this is in the before the year 2000. This is in the 90s that I was sending Star Wars cards in the mail. And we
Nice.
had a similar honor system that you actually see in the trading community on Discord,
Mm.
where we would send each other the cards,
Mm.
and after each person received the cards, there would be a follow-up message basically saying that this person's cards were received in good quality,
Mm.
got them like quickly and on time, and then you gained like recognition on the message boards as like someone that was worthy and trustworthy to
Mm.
collect and trade with. I remember sending like cash in the mail for some of these cards when I was like 10 years old. And I actually still have one of the cards. It's like a Wampa Dan. There was a message board person named Wampa Dan,
Mm.
and I guess they love communicating with me, that they sent me a Wampa card and they signed it Wampa Dan. And that
Nice.
was the only card that I kept in my entire Star Wars collection was that Wampadan card because it had that sentimental value of
Mhm.
reminding me of the crazy early days of these message boards and having an outlet to communicate with like just random people in the world, which I
Mhm.
thought was so cool at the time because I wasn't some popular kid in school by any means. It's picked on.
I feel you. I went through similar. It's I don't know. I think that I mean on that topic. I mean that's so I definitely agree that the NFT Discord is like you can utilize it to shill things right and like drive the price up on something that logically makes sense because you could shill whatever a people and be like oh it's only 100,000 it should be worth two but realistically you're not gonna
Yeah.
push it to 200,000 but to the other extent I think that being it's something that I'm realizing with like the space a lot more that like a lot of the weird kids and like getting picked on like a lot of them are digital artists and I think that leads to them actually creating this space where they are very loving and supportive and everybody reaches out and has each other's backs and yeah I mean I think that the facial recognition that Ferocious has at this point like is so it's probably like top I don't think anybody matches him right like there's
Yeah.
nobody else that comes to mind that I can think of their face or like think of even like their laughter and like bubbliness, right? Like that's Ferocious, right? But like at this point, that's I yeah, he's definitely gonna have a monster. I don't know, decade. Like I can't. I don't know where this stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. It.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's still in such its infancy age,
Mhm,
which is really exciting to me. Like you had talked about, where I was talking in the Discord that
mhm,
when YouTubers start making video content about this more frequently, that's really going to drive the masses to this.
mhm,
Um, and especially when you combine the YouTube industry promoting it, and then you've got the video game industry promoting it,
mhm.
then you've got all the sports franchises promoting it through Top
Yeah.
Shots and whatever Dapper Labs wants to do next with any sports
Mhm,
franchise, because I'm sure the NHL and the Major League Baseball, they're
mhm.
all must be messaging them, being like,
Clamoring.
please allow us to be the next sport
Mhm.
to be doing this.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, speaking of NBA Top Shots, I see that completely revolutionizing the entire collector space in a big way,
Mhm,
really big way. Because I collected Star Wars cards, Lord of the Rings cards, Pokemon cards. I don't know why I didn't collect Magic cards. It was
mhm.
really in my repertoire of like nerdy sci-fi stuff, but
Mhm,
it was no one around me played Magic cards, so I just
mhm.
played all the other ones basically. But there's so many faults and issues with collecting physical cards
Mhm,
that the digital space has so much more room to grow. If you're collecting, let's say, Pokemon cards right now, you got to go to your local store, you got to drive to your local store, check if they have stock,
mhm,
and then if they do have stock, you got to then buy it, bring it home. You got to open up all the packaging. I got into Pokemon cards, like it reinvigorated my
mhm.
interest back in October
Same.
after Logan Paul did his box break. And I
Mhm,
was like, oh man, this is so exciting that this is becoming popular again. So I
mhm,
bought a bunch of cards, and I had never had the money earlier to buy a full box of Pokemon cards and to
mhm.
just open them. So I was like, I was a little kid at the time. I was
Yeah.
only spending a few dollars of my allowance here and there back in the day. But after opening an entire box, I'm looking at all the garbage around me from all of the packs and the packaging. And I'm
Mhm.
like, this is a huge waste right
Yeah.
here. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And like obviously waste and the environment is something that we really need to look at over the next 10, 20, however many years. But
Mhm.
I was looking at it, I'm like, this is really bad. Like when people talk about the amount of electricity that's needed for the NFT space and that we need
Yeah.
to cancel it because it's using too much energy, that's a problem that's going to be solved over
Mhm.
the next few years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be solvable in a much easier way than the physical market is now. You
Yeah.
can't take your Pokemon cards and repackage it in a way that's going to be better for the environment
Mhm.
because they're going to want to make more money and they're going to continue to use plastics.
Yeah.
Those plastics aren't recyclable
Mhm.
and they just end up in a landfill.
Yeah.
Do we want to accelerate the use of solar and other green energy sources,
Mhm.
or do we keep just sending more garbage to landfills?
Yeah.
And then once you actually get your card, you need to go get it graded.
Yeah.
People are hyping up the prices of these cards as if they're all PSA 10s.
Yeah.
Newsflash, no, it's very difficult to get a PSA 10.
Yeah.
Even if you open it straight from the pack and you put it right into like a sleeve properly and everything,
Mm.
even at that point, you have printing errors or it just has little nicks here and
Mm.
there. And then you have to rely on some random person to give it a grade.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what if that person's having a bad day and they just grade your
Everybody's a
first
9.
edition Charizard a 9 instead of a 9.5 or a 10?
Yeah.
All of a sudden the value drops by like $200,000.
Yeah.
And then you got to deal with the shipping of it
Mm.
and dealing with it could get lost in the mail. Leon Hart, who really popularized Pokemon on the world. He
Mm.
was the first person to repull the first edition Charizard and to really blow it up on YouTube and everywhere.
Mm.
That card, he went to go get graded, and then it got graded and then lost in the mail, and it was lost
Oh
for
my God.
months. And like we're talking about hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars at that time in property value, and it's just lost in the mail.
Yeah.
And like, what are you gonna do? And the NFT space just solves so many
Mm.
issues that the physical markets had for years, and it makes it a much more liquid market to be
Mm.
able to sell to fans much more quickly and enjoyably. I
Mm.
sold some NBA Top Shot moments last night just to
Mm.
see how quickly I could sell them.
Yeah.
They all sold too quick. I was like,
Yeah.
oh shoot.
Might have
I
underpriced.
guess I could have, yeah, I guess I could have raised the price a little bit,
Mm.
but I was like, I just wanted to see how liquid the market was, and it was
Mm.
real quick.
Yeah, I don't know. I was debating having him on, and I'm debating having on somebody as far as like like an NBA Top Shot, aficionado, right? And there was a guy who was trying to do what you're just saying, where he's trying to see what the liquidity of the market is, and he's trying to do $1 million worth of sales, and so he has all these cards that are hundreds of thousands, and the challenge that his buddy posted to him is like sell them all in a week, and I mean. I'm doing Top Shots too. I'm like a decent basketball fan. I've kind of fallen off in recent years. Top Shot. So real quick before I hit that one, I think that the grading could be like an art. I'm not saying I'm for it, but the grading issue that cards have could be a strong suit because now you have a tiered system. Could be. I think that that's the only strong suit that like and being able to hold it, right? Like being able to hold it would be cool, but outside of those two, right? Like with collectibles, there's no other reason why I would want something physical, or a card at this point in time. But the the NBA Top Shot, like it's getting me more into basketball because now I'm like, like I'm seeing the dunk and like my buddy recommended buying it. My buddy's pretty big in it. He refuses to come on the podcast, and he's pretty big into it. He recommended the LeBron James 3-pointer where he shoots and then turns around at the crowd at like his bench.
I,
Yes.
I almost bought that last night because I sold a couple cards
Hmm.
and I could have bought the lowest ask for that. And I was like, is that the one that
Hmm.
I buy? And I was actually looking at that. My buddy RJ, he actually sold it last week for $200.
Oh man.
Or no, sorry, I think it was five.
Mm.
No, I think it was $200 at the time, and then
Yeah.
the entire market exploded
Mm.
and it went to like 2,000. But luckily, he took that 200 and invested it in other moments that
Mm.
have all gone up in value as well.
Yeah.
But similar to the grading system for physical cards, I see that as like the serial numbers,
Hmm.
where like a 10 is low serial,
Yeah.
a 9.5 is like slightly lower, and
Uh-huh.
then like the very end of the spectrum of serials is like the 1 or the 2.
Yeah.
So I see it as the same system, but in a more fair way that is more structured
Mm.
and isn't reliant on a human's ability to look at a card and see how good of condition it is, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's actually like that's a phenomenal point. I didn't think of it. That's yeah. I I love Top Shot. I think it's going to literally, like you said, I think it's going to revolutionize like the card industry. You're gonna have everybody else hopping in trying to chase the wealth. But on top of that, I'm more of a basketball fan than I have been since I don't know NBA 2000 2K5. Like legitimately, like that's the last basketball game that I think I purchased. Kevin Garnett on the Timberwolves, and like like that. That's the peak of my basketball fandom, and it's kind of like gone a little bit downhill since then. And this like seeing the athleticism, like seeing just the highlights, where like you just go through the collections, all of those are highlights. you go, holy
Yeah.
shit, I gotta watch some basketball. Like these guys are killing it. Like that's my thought process at least.
I I don't actually watch basketball.
Uh yeah.
I'm on the other spectrum where
Mm,
I just saw the community collector side of it,
mm,
and like my buddy RJ loves basketball,
mm.
so he's the one that I turn to. I'm like, is this someone good?
Uh-huh.
Is this play good? Because
Mm,
I don't really know too. Like I've watched games here
yeah.
and there, and when Toronto went to the finals, I bandwagoned and
Mm,
watched like all of those because I was like, holy shit, a Canadian team is in the finals. So
yeah.
I watched all of that, of course. But
Mm,
really, I hadn't like I don't watch a lot of sports, but I've
mm,
been like I played and did a lot of sports in my younger days, but I
mm,
just haven't too much more recently. But similarly, I'm now starting to follow more things about basketball,
mm,
and I can see myself watching more basketball in the future
mm,
because of this. And I so where I see some of this like NBA Top Shots kind of going and connecting with the real world, I think eventually you're going to see ESPN, Sportsnet have highlights based on Top Shots,
mm,
where instead of it being, hey, these are the top 10 sports net highlights of the week,
mm.
it's going to be these are the top 10 highlights by Bro Shot 69, and these are their 10 moments that they've collected over the week, and they're going to
Mm,
highlight the NBA Top Shot moments,
yeah.
and that way it feeds into the community
Mm,
and gets people more interactive with the NBA community,
mm,
and then eventually I see it as uh, you'll be able to watch NBA content on NBA Top Shots,
mm,
and you'll be able to watch live games on NBA Top Shots through a few different ways. One, they'll have like if you don't have like a cable system,
mm,
you'll have that ability to like pay a subscription, and you
mm,
can watch all of the NBA games live on NBA Top Shot.
mm,
I think that's going to come in the next few years.
mm,
And then you'll also have the ability to engage on highlights and moments as they're happening in real time. So,
mm,
like that LeBron moment when he did that 3-pointer, then he looked away
mm.
instantly. Great moment. I think there will be like some fan button where it's like Top Shot, and then you've got like millions of people watching the game on
Mm.
Top Shot, and then a crazy play happens and everyone's clicking Top Shot, Top Shot, Top
Yeah.
Shot. And then instead of it being like, hey, hashtag Top Shot this on Twitter, it's
Mm,
already just built into the website. People are watching the content
mm,
and they're actively choosing what are the highlights and moments of the week to get turned into moments
mm,
as a way of like additional fan engagement
mm.
directly with the content itself.
I could see that, and I could also see in between that, right? You're streaming the game, you're on Top Shots, you're clicking the button, make the top shot. Every once in a while, game of the week, everybody tunes in. Whichever one is like the top moment, everybody who clicked one of them gets that moment. Then
Yeah.
now you're invested because you're sitting there going, oh shit, fucking, if I'm sitting here and the moment happens, I
Yeah.
get the money. Like, because that's
Yeah.
money plays a factor, but at the same time, like now, like it's like so to me that's fantasy football. I didn't watch. I'm similar to you. I played sports my whole life growing up. Right. I can't sit still. I'm very talkative. I'm very active. I like to keep my brain going, and so it's no. Everybody can do whatever they want to do. More power to you. I can't sit in front of the screen and watch a game. I used to sit and watch the game, and I'd be like, throw it at him. He's wide open, and like I'm rooting for my guys, and that's what
Yeah.
fantasy football is. This Top Shot thing I think, is going to be there where you're sitting there and you go, I want to see moments happen. And that integration is also going to be like a big thing. I think, you know, next question, stupid question. Do you think NFTs are here to stay? This is a softball.
Oh yeah. I think we're just in the early stages of NFTs.
mm,
I think we will see some highs and some lows.
mm,
We haven't really seen the lows yet
mm,
since this new explosion of NFT interest.
mm,
And I think that's going to play a bit of a pivotal role on how it kind of like moves into the future. But eventually, hopefully people know this, there will be a bear market.
Mm,
There are bear markets in collectibles, there's bear markets in cryptocurrency.
mm,
So how I'm actually really interested to also see when we do see the bear market arrive again in the cryptocurrency space,
mm,
how that affects the NFT space. Because what's also really interesting is if you correlate the stock market bear markets with like the traditional fine art markets,
mm,
actually art is actually considered a safe haven to
mm,
take your money out of the stock market and to put it into the fine art market because
mm,
the liquidity is a lot less. So there's less sales and the markets tend to dump a little bit less.
mm,
So people will put their money into fine art in during the bear market and then
mm.
actually bring it back. So I'm interested to see where that happens. I know
Mm.
people are going crazy about all the different valuations with everything,
Yeah,
but we're still in such an early phase of the market.
yeah,
The entire market on Nifty Gateway is like under $200 million.
yeah,
And Christie's and Sotheby's, they're doing auctions for like one art piece
yeah,
that's like in the 10 to $100 million.
yeah.
So what I'm really excited to see is how the Beeple auction with Christie's goes. I
Mm,
think that is really going to be a telltale sign of where this market is going to go in the future.
mm.
We've already had I don't know if I'm ever
Sotheby's.
pronounce it Sotheby's.
I think so. I,
Sotheby's.
you know what? Let me say I'm not. I said that very confidently. Let me say I'm not 100% positive, but I think it's Sotheby's.
Yeah, Sotheby's,
Mm,
they bought the cheap
mm,
from Pac, and then they were also gifted the gift.
mm,
So that was their first dive into the NFT space.
mm,
But they haven't done their own auction in the NFT space.
mm,
And we're going to see Christie's now jump in, and the very first time that they've accepted anything other than just cash or whatever
mm.
with Ethereum. So I'm really interested to see if we have like a Bitcoin or Ethereum whale
Oh
that's going
man.
to make a gigantic splash and basically like a big FU
Yeah.
to the traditional art market and say, oh, you thought those were expensive
Yeah. Yeah.
and make a splash. Like it's such an unknown variable at this point, but it
Mm.
has me so excited. I haven't been able to figure it out, but are they going to have like a live stream when like the last hour is happening?
They
Because
better.
I'm just ready to like get the popcorn, some snacks and
Yeah.
stuff, and it's going to be an event. I know the Nifty Gateway Discord is just going to be
Popping.
glued to it. It's going to be like the most exciting
Mm.
hour I
The Super
think
Bowl.
in a long time. Yeah, it's the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's a really good way to frame it. It's like the Super Bowl of the auctions right now. So
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see where that goes.
Mm.
Because once that happens, that's going to play a big role because all of the large fine art collectors that
Mm.
are spending millions and millions of dollars,
Mm.
they're now going to be seeing what's happening with the
Yeah.
digital revolution of artwork. And it may make them really scared
Yeah.
or it could make them really excited.
Yeah.
There's so many different variables here. Does the digital NFT space do something similar that Bitcoin has done, where it's absorbing the gold market cap and we're
Mm.
seeing the exodus of gold into Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Are we going to see that with fine art and traditional art? Is
Mm.
it going to somehow devalue some of these greatest artists of all time? Like,
Mm.
I don't see like Picasso
Yeah.
and like all like Monet artwork going down because oh it doesn't have an NFT,
Mm.
and how does it have value at that point?
Yeah.
But maybe in the future, someone that owns one of these like pieces of work, whether it's like a Picasso, a Monet, or something,
Mm.
maybe eventually they auction it off tied to an NFT, and that
Mm.
NFT has a serial of 100 or 1,000, so
Yeah.
that me like I was never going to be able to own or buy a Monet or something in my lifetime, but
Yep.
maybe I could own 1/1000th
Mm.
of a Monet in the future
Yeah.
that was tied to, maybe I won't get to keep the physical portion of it,
Mm.
but maybe I get a portion of the digital of it or something. So it's really tough to say where the market is going, but it's definitely not going away.
Mm.
Even if everything shit hits the fan,
Mm.
the cryptocurrency has a big bear market, and
Mm.
then the NFT space has a even bigger bear market because there's even less liquidity in the market.
Mm.
it's only yeah, maybe it lasts a year, maybe it lasts 2 years, but eventually it's going to come back, and it's
Yeah.
going to come back stronger than ever. That's to be expected, I think.
Mm,
But if you look at it in the long time frame, where it's like, what is that Beeple bull going to be worth in 10 years from
crazy.
now, when Bitcoin has flipped gold and has a market cap higher than gold? What is that Beeple bull, that representing of like Bitcoin, going to be worth at that point?
Mm,
Who knows? Could be 500,000, could
yeah.
be 1 million, could be more. Especially when these Bitcoin and Ethereum whales gain a lot of money.
Mm,
I don't see them buying up Monets and
no.
Picassos. I think they're going to be buying digitally native NFT pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. I think that I'm I'm ecstatic that I had you on because you make phenomenal points. This has been great. I'm not done, but I just that you were talking about that, and I'm like, oh, this guy is brilliant. This is perfect. But I think so. From a personal standpoint, I think that for a low serial number on the the people pieces, I think we could be seeing them in the twos, the threes, the fours in like the next month or two, right? I mean, obviously today was a decent pullback on crypto markets, and so I do think that there's going to be some kind of correlation between stocks to Bitcoin to the NFT space. I as a second point, I do think a lot of the people hopping into NBA Top Shot are more cash based. Like they're not as like it feels like a lot of the Top Shot guys are getting
Oh yeah,
into NFT, but a lot of those guys are like older generations, card heads, cash people. Like it seems like a different market entirely.
sneakerhead.
Yeah,
I
yeah. So it's
think
it.
I would assume that 90% or more of the transactions on NBA Top Shots is through credit cards.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now maybe not now because there's so much Dapper balance floating around. I saw my buddy
Yeah.
my buddy sent me this thing, and people are offering zero point 0.6 for your Dapper account based on the balance. And like, so if you sold all your pieces and stuff, they'll offer you zero point 0.6. Like zero point 0.6 is nothing. Like that's insane. Like imagine. Uh, yeah, I mean, I like the 60/40 deal, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess I'm super excited about the space. I think that to your earliest point in our conversation that happened on the Discord, I think that YouTubers and other mainstream people, right? Like, as soon as you're able to trade, a Halo skin for a CS:GO skin for, whatever, a Hello Kitty piece and then a Philip Hodis, right? All on the same exchange. That's where like, that is going to really be where it's like it's too mainstream where like you can't doubt it whatsoever. I don't think it's going anywhere, but that's where it's like, oh shit, like maybe it might be time to leave the party.
I think eventually we'll see Instagram get into the NFT space.
Hmm.
Where I see it being interconnected into the metaverse and digital sphere is that your NFT wallet and your gallery or collection will be integrated in a way that it could be connected to your Twitter account,
Mm,
your Instagram account. So if someone's looking at your Instagram profile,
mm,
they can click a one thing to see all your photos, but
mm,
then they could click another thing to see your NFT gallery.
mm,
And they would then be able to buy directly off of Instagram,
mm,
and Instagram could take a royalty based off of the sale and transaction, similar to OpenSea. I
mm,
think it will eventually get to the point once cryptocurrency is fully integrated
mm,
into social media, which I think it will in the next like 5 years.
mm.
Um, they'll connect it with the NFT space as well, and you'll see people selling NFTs directly
Yeah.
on Instagram and stuff in the future. But I think that's kind of like the more mainstream
Mm,
side, and we'll have to wait until you're able to produce NFTs at such a large volume
mm,
that it'll be cheap to create like a serial number of like 10,000
mm.
NFTs. And that's kind of where I see the future of it eventually when it explodes to the mainstream. Like a one of one or a serial number of a
Insane.
thousand, I think is going to be tiny in the
Mm,
future. And instead, there will be serial numbers similar to Top Shots where
mm.
they're in like 15,000.
Yeah.
And then for Top Shots, yeah, I think even 15,000 is a small amount in the
Yeah.
next couple years. Eventually, it's going to be 150,000 for
Mm,
a common. because a lot of people don't realize how many cards are out in the market
Mm,
in the global like thing. If you go on PSA, you can see the volume of like Michael Jordan rookie cards or like Charizard first editions.
mm,
People think Charizard first edition is super rare, but there's tens of thousands of first edition Charizards that have been graded by
mm,
PSA. So your first edition Charizard is one of like over 10,000 first edition Charizards.
mm,
Obviously, the 10, there's less of them than nines and eights and sevens and whatnot.
mm,
But in the supply, there's tens of thousands of first edition Charizards. Then
mm,
if there's tens of thousands of first edition Charizards, there's probably close to like 50,000 just regular Charizards from the base set,
mm.
which really is showing the supply compared to the NFT space. If you've got something that's a serial of 10
Mm.
or 100, that's tiny. That's like
Yeah,
a microscopic amount.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I again, great point. I have to ask because it came top of mind from I don't know, but it just rolled back into my head. How do you play darts in the virtual dart game? I
Oh, okay. It's really good. So rare boards. If you go to the rare board gallery,
mm,
you can actually just sign in through your Nifty gateway.
mm,
So if you just add in like your username,
mm,
and if you have any of the darts on your profile and in your collection, you can use the darts in the actual game. The darts don't have any different special abilities. They all do the same thing. But
mm,
when you're actually playing the dart game, on the dartboard, it's actually set up really well. So you just move your kind of cursor around
mm,
where you want it to go,
mm,
and then you click like the throw button and you
mm,
hold it, and then a bar appears, and it's kind of like a golf game. If you've ever played golf
mm.
games where you have to like time it to hit that sweet spot,
Yeah,
and if it hits that sweet spot, then your dart goes to where you kind of threw it, but it kind of moves around like this slowly.
mm,
And then once you click the throw, it pauses, then you try and hit that sweet spot, and then if it hits that sweet spot, it goes to
gotcha.
that area. It's actually really intuitive.
Mm,
It's probably the best way I've actually played darts in a video game. It
mm,
was like really quick to catch on, and works really well, and uses the exact same rules as darts normally. So you have to like double out,
mm.
get 301 to finish the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna have to set one of those up. I was playing darts for a while, and I'm not great, but it's a good night of like mingling and stuff like that. In this COVID world,
Mhm.
I have to maybe try and set something up with like the guys that or guys and gals that I've been interviewing, just because I think it'd be a cool get together. I have one last question. It started off with the artist, and I think that it's just a cool question. And so, what do you think your purpose is in life?
Oh man, my purpose in life. That is a deep question. Okay. Um, my purpose in life. Um, I personally want to make myself and the people around me to have fun and to grow in life, um, in personal and in wealth and in just general happiness.
Mm,
I'm someone that goes to a lot of music festivals. I spend like a lot of money going to music festivals, so I got to save a lot of money
mm,
because of COVID.
nice.
But I really, really value that like connectivity and oneness with
Mm,
the EDM music festival community,
mm,
where everyone is just so positive and so loving and so respectful. And I try and bring that to everything that I do in my life, where I'm trying to just be outgoing and positive to
mm,
cheer people up, make sure that things around them are going well, and that I can make sure that their life is better for it. I don't know if that makes the best sense, but I just want to bring more positivity and happiness. I
mm,
got picked on ruthlessly when I was a kid
mm,
in elementary school and high school for being like really overweight.
mm,
And I've been lucky enough to lose a lot of that weight, but
mm,
it still kills you, and like
mm.
it hangs with you over the years.
Yeah.
So I've always just tried to really push positivity and love with a lot of people. I
Mhm,
think that's why I also kind of gravitate towards like the psychedelic art and
mm,
community as well, because it's very loving and like positive.
yeah.
And that's the type of people that I want to surround myself with. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I've been loving the Discord channel on Nifty Gateway, is
Mm,
I get a lot of that as well.
yeah.
Everyone is just so supportive, friendly,
Mm,
and so talkative that you can jump into like a group chat and just like chat with just some random people, and
yeah.
everyone's just having such a great time. And because I haven't been able to go to music festivals because of COVID, I really needed like a community outlet to
Mm,
really kind of put my energy towards.
mm,
And that's been like my like on working, like it's like I'm saying it's not work, but at the same
mm,
time it's also like kind of tied to my work, and I think will actually become a big part of my work in the future, whether
mm,
it's working with artists directly or YouTubers and social media people getting into NFTs more in the future.
mm,
But I'm just having so much fun getting into it,
yeah.
that yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Dude, I want to say that you're 100% on point with that. You're bringing a lot of positivity in, and so I appreciate it. I want to say thank you for the time. The music festival scene is phenomenal, and so for people who haven't experienced live music or haven't gone to festivals, you have to do it. I do think the NFT space,
Happy.
a lot of people are into trippy shit, and so I think Burning Man might seem like a logical meetup space for a lot of heads, and so hopefully that comes to fruition. I'm going to be starting to save now. I'm assuming it's not happening this year, but maybe for next.
Have you been to Burning Man?
I have not. I have not.
Oh, I went in 2015,
Mm,
and for anyone watching, you have to go. It is the coolest place in
mm,
the world. And if you enjoy art,
mm,
you will love Burning Man,
mm,
because there are hundreds of artists that spend their entire year creating some of the most epic art pieces
mm,
that are just randomly spread out throughout Burning Man.
mm,
And I had a blast just going through the desert and just finding all of these different random art pieces.
mm.
So if you enjoy art, you will love Burning Man. And the community there is unmatched. It's so positive, so friendly, so loving.
Mm.
You will not ever regret spending your money going there. So if you are going to Burning Man, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
We'll be doing it. I'm gonna be putting it out on Twitter if I can make it. I don't think there's gonna be one this year. I'm not. I'm more planning for 2022 personally. But yeah,
uh,
I do also want
Me
to
too.
just
I don't
mention.
even know if we can legally cross the border.
Yeah, let's positive thoughts. Positive thoughts.
Yeah, positive thoughts. It's
All right. Well,
2021. Let's go.
thank you, dude. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate the insight, dude. It went like most of them do, which is even better than expected. You brought a ton of expertise and intelligence into the conversation, and I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much for having me on board. And if we want to do this in the future again, I'm always down.
Yeah,
So
man. 6 months to a year, we'll check in on the collection. All
sounds good. I love it.
right. Have a go, man.
All right.
Peace.
All right. Cheers.
See ya. What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning into the show, Savage Talks 31. Getting old out here, right? It was an awesome one. I really, really like this guy. Definitely going to run it back with him. I think that he's a genuinely great dude. I hope to see him starting to manage people. Please, 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 if you are a digital artist and he's open to it, reach out to this guy and see if he will help you. Because clearly, like just have him send some of the YouTube artists that he is managing. Because clearly the guy has some incredible talent and really knows the space in terms of marketing. And I really believe that a digital artist success is going to be some kind of combination of like all of your social media presence. Like just Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, everything, Instagram, and so that connection is really going to set you apart. And I think that this guy is an absolute master at it. And so please reach out. I want you guys to be successful. I hope you guys are successful. As always, sorry that was a rant right for the close, but thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you. Peace. Stay safe.